So, welcome back to another episode of Analyzing Awfulness, where we break down whether or not the OP is in the right or the wrong, while offering unsolicited advice regarding the situations. Today we have a half-brother that tried his best to be a parental figure, a male figure for his younger sister. He tried to teach her many things, but she never wanted to learn, a mistake she'll come to regret. Let's get into it. I, 38 male, have a half-sister, 27 female. She and I have the same mom but different dads. Neither of our dads have ever been very involved in our lives, so I have kind of been the only male role model she's ever had. W brother right there. Half sibling or not, you are 10 years her elder and have taken that responsibility up proudly right out of the gates. Sucks that neither of your fathers were particularly good ones though. Not sure if it's your culture, where you live, or your mom's taste in men, but the kids don't deserve to miss out on a role model, a father figure, because of it. Good on you OP for stepping up for her to give her what you never really had. We never had much money growing up, so I started taking odd jobs around 14 or 15 for extra spending money. Yard work, paper boys, shoveling, etc. We lived in a smaller town and I ended up meeting a few middle-aged guys who were kind of do-it-all handymen, and they took me under their wing. They taught me a lot about tools, cars, carpentry, you name it. I was never good in school, but these two were a wealth of information and I was ate it up. I think you meant to say and I ate it up. The older generation has a responsibility to teach the younger ones, whether that's them actually going out of their way to teach skills and crafts, or them getting in trouble as a lesson of what not to do. It's really nice to see that there are still people willing to go out of their way and do the former. Your willingness to seek out that information shows a great deal of maturity as well. You acknowledge that however you were being taught in school never worked for you. Not well. But instead of giving up, you found other ways to learn the knowledge you'll need to get by in this world. I'm saying that as someone who is 22 and yet doesn't know how to do half the things I feel like I should be able to. I was mentored in things like theology, philosophy, and psychology, but when it comes to doing what men are expected to do, like my father would do, I'm practically clueless, and I'm ashamed to say that. You also started work rather early, not because you could, but because you realized finances were tough and felt as if you had a responsibility to help out with that, which again, I have loads of respect for, especially since at that age, depending on where you live, you may not have been able to get a steady job to make the money needed, so odd jobs that you had to seek out were most likely your go-to, which takes even greater responsibility. I worked hard in my 20s and was able to purchase my sis a cheap used car when she turned 16. I tried to teach her everything I felt she should know about basic car stuff, but she had no interest whatsoever. She just wanted to drive around with her friends. She would always say,
"Why do I need to know how to do ABC when I can just pay someone to do it?"
No matter how many times I offered to show her how to change the oil or swap a tire, she never took me up on it. Okay, so to a point, your sister has a point. Most of the things that will need done, there is someone that you can pay that would be well suited for the task. The problem is that isn't always the case. If you're somewhere without service and are having car problems, you'll be pretty screwed if you don't know what to do. That is where OP's point becomes valid. He wants to prepare her for those situations, so if she ever happens to be in one, then she can get herself out. As someone who has stepped up as a role model, he wants what is best for her, and what guarantees her safety the most. Plus, a lot of the work that you can pay someone to do, you can do yourself far cheaper. Sure, YouTube would help in that scenario, if you had service, but learning in real time with someone physically there to assist you would most likely be far easier. Regardless, you, OP, bought the car for her, which was super nice, but it also most likely came with a feeling of responsibility regarding her well-being whenever she's behind the wheel. She has since purchased a newer car of her own, and I've helped her with a couple basic repairs to avoid having to bring it into a shop. Each time I offer to show her what, how, and why I'm doing something, but she refused to even attempt to learn. She is very much a girly girl, and has zero interest in that sort of thing. Mechanical things aren't everyone's forte, that's true. In it doesn't have to be either. Also true. But if basic repairs can be done at home and you're offering to show her how to do them, then honestly she should accept. Even if she never puts what she learns into practice, just the opportunity to spend that time with you, to learn from you while you're still here should be something that she'd jump at the chance to do, especially since you've practically helped raise her. It feels like, even if unintentionally, she's taking advantage of you. She feels secure in the fact that you'll always be around to solve her problems for her, as you've done up to this point, and therefore doesn't have any desire to learn how to figure them out on her own. It could also be a way for her to ensure that you stay in her life, since, as you said, her father never really was. If she depends on you a lot and always needs you for something, maybe she feels like you'll be less likely to grow apart. Independence can be scary, so even if subconsciously, she may be running from it by running to you. Last Saturday, I got a call from her at about 10 p.m. She had just gotten off work and got a flat tire on her way home. She lives in the boonies and works 20 miles away, and she was stranded about halfway home. It was also pouring rain. She was upset because she didn't know what to do and wanted me to come help. Even if she knew what to do, given that it's most likely pretty dark out, that she's alone, and that it's pouring the rain down, probably would have been too stressful for her anyway, especially if she's never had to actually change her tire up to this point or do any type of work on a car within these conditions. Her wanting you to come help wasn't necessarily only because she didn't know what to do, even though that would seem like the most obvious factor. She most likely just felt like everything was going wrong and just wanted to lean on you more for comfort than anything else. That being said, her not knowing what to do in the situation if you weren't able to help is a problem. Also, she shouldn't be solely reliant on you, especially as an adult in her late 20s. It's sweet that she is, but only to a point. Being in uncomfortable situations is part of being an adult, and letting her deal with some things such as this by herself would definitely help prepare her for a similar situation in the future. If she listened when you offered to teach her, then although you could still comfort her by phone during it, she could still solve the problem on her own if she absolutely had to. Back to the story. Problem was, I had spent that evening drinking with some buddies and no way I was driving. Respect. If you went out driving in these conditions, you could harm yourself, her, or someone else, and there's no reason to expect you to put yourself or anyone else in that situation. I told her she would have to either call a tow truck, roadside assistance, or wait there until morning when I could drive to her. None of these options were acceptable to her and she got peed off at me. This isn't fair to you. I understand she's in a situation that must be pretty stressful for her, but regardless, it's her situation and has nothing to really do with you. If she has a phone to call you, then she can call someone else, or as you said, roadside assistance. That's kinda what they exist for. Sure, it would cost some money, but if she would have let you teach her, she would have been able to save that money all on her own. Spending that dough is a consequence of her actions. She should take some accountability for that. Waiting all night for you is also an option, but a woman alone in a car all night is definitely not the optimal situation. She's not in a big city, so there's less people to pose a problem, but there's also less people to assist if someone stumbled upon her. I'm not saying she couldn't handle herself, although from what I've learned in this story, I don't believe she could, but it's definitely the worst decision out of the two paths that you proposed. She asked if I could talk her through changing a tire over the phone and I laughed. This made her even more mad. Okay, so laughing at that, although deserved, definitely wouldn't have went over well given all she's most likely feeling up to this point. You were drunk, some people will laugh at anything after a few drinks, but she most likely wouldn't take that into consideration in this situation. I told her I've offered over a dozen times to show her that sort of thing and she refused every single time. I told her I would gladly show her the next day, but no way am I trying to drunkenly talk her through it while she's upset and on a dark country road in the rain. She hung up, but she did text me a few minutes later to tell me that a friend is coming to pick her up, no thanks to me. She's angry, probably feels abandoned, I get it, I do, but that doesn't justify her acting like this. She seems to truly expect you to put lives in danger, including your own, by drunkenly driving to wherever she is, or possibly providing instructions to do something that you may not get right or her in her emotional state may not understand. Again, consequences of her own actions at this point, especially if you offered to show her countless times before this moment. She can't expect you to stay sober and on call in case she ever needs you. She can't expect you to drop everything to be there in an instant, especially when she didn't put in the effort to prepare herself for these situations. The next morning, my mom called me and told me that little sis called her and told her what happened the previous night. She told me that she's disappointed in me for not helping my sister and that I shouldn't have laughed at her when she was upset because it only made things worse. Now I can't blame the mother for this response. Her daughter was most likely an unreliable narrator, and who knows what she even told her. The laugh thing is understandable to be mad at, even if it wasn't your intention to escalate things with it, but she should be proud of you for not drinking and driving, especially when there were many other options available. Shortly after, little sis texted me that I was a jerk for not doing more to help, and that laughing at her when she was in trouble was a jerk thing to do. I mean, it wasn't nice if it was an intentional response, but you were under the influence on your own time, and she can't hold the actions that occurred from that against you, especially whenever she's the one that contacted you, engaged in the conversation, and disregarded your answer. You aren't the butthole, you aren't a jerk. You handled the situation as responsible as you could, from the moment your sister came into the equation to the situation that she's calling you a jerk over. As far as I'm aware, you have went above and beyond in every respect, and I have nothing but respect for you for that. She should have learned how to do these things, she should have been willing to ask for roadside assistance since she was unwilling to learn them, and she shouldn't have expected you to put lives at risk just to save her a few dollars. She's almost 30 years old. At some point, she's got to take some accountability for her own actions, and this is a good time to start. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Have a great day. Thank you.